Hello everyone, is the Prophet Michael David, aka Aries, and today we're going to go over my personal Ides of February and March. In other words, this is by far the most difficult and intense time for me out of the entire year. The end of uh, winter and the beginning of spring. So today is February 11th, 2024. It's the 2 year anniversary when my friend Angie died. I spoke about her last video, and I'm not going to elaborate on her this video. Maybe sometime in the future, but um, as I spoke about in my last video as well, 4 days ago on February 7th was the 6th anniversary of the death of my parents. So February is a very difficult month for me in general. In March is always crazy. At least it has been the last 3 years. I often talk about my original 36 days from February 28th, 2021 through April 5th, but it happens every year. I mean, it's been different in different ways. The first 2021, I became Aries. 2022, Angie just died. I got sold on to Tupac, or realized all of this, and realized a lot about my mathematics. What was really it's all about area. And then last year was the anniversary of Angie's death, my last day of mourning, where I realized I was the reincarnation of Joseph, eldest son of Raquel. So something crazy happens every single year. It always does. It's super intense. That being said, I've endured it 3 times before. I'll endure it this time as well. I always learn something new about the universe. It's just super intense. That being said, for the rest of this video, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing a lot of videos or very few, but I'm always working on something. So I'm going to go over basically the videos that I'm going to do in the future that I've either promised you and not done yet, or just stuff that I'm working on that I'm eventually going to do a video on. All right, number one, a video I've said that I would do but have not delivered on yet is Elizabeth. That is my next reincarnation. And just as I am the embodiment of the sun, metaphorically, she will be embodiment of the moon, not as metaphorically. But she's from day 35 in 2021, so that would Easter Sunday, April 4th. And it's an entire video because that moment seemed to, kind of like in the movie, seemed to stretch out over a very long time. I know a whole lot about her and the process. She's also going to be Mashiach, just 3 times better than me. Number two, that's my sign that I paid really good money for that nobody figured out or even got close, I don't think. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an entire video on it, and I'm going to break it down piece by piece in the way I do it with screenshots, and I'm going to explain the whole thing just so you don't think it's gibberish. And yes, it's approximation. I just don't know how good. I did equals thing to be more provocative, but again, nobody even got close to solving it. Thirdly, we're going to go deep into some more prime number theory with concepts called races. In this case, race between the 5 mod 6 primes and the 1 mod 6 primes. I've shown you that screenshot before. That's how you should always envision the number line, especially if you want to hunt the primes, because they all line up on the 1 mod 6 or the 5 mod 6 lines. And just to refresh your memory, all the blues are 5 mod 6 primes. All the greens are 1 mod 6 primes, or 7 mod 6 primes. All the oranges are composite numbers, multiplication of 2 primes. And all of the pink ones are prime squares, or powers of primes. All right, so here's a quick story of how I would differentiate between a good prime theorist and a not so good prime theorist. And I'm talking about anybody throughout history. And I'll try to talk fast for limited time. Okay, number one, how many primes are there? There are an infinite amount of primes. Correct. Euclid proved that. Then I would ask, okay, which two mod 6 lines, except for 2 and 3, contain all of the primes? And if they knew anything about primes, they would say the 5 mod 6 line and the 7 mod 6 line. Correct. Then I would say, okay, how many primes are there on both lines? Or which line has more primes? And they would say neither. Both of them have an infinite amount of primes. Correct. But then my fourth question would be, which one is denser with primes? And if they knew their stuff, or if they just took a 50-50 guess and said the 5 mod 6 line is denser with primes than the 7 mod 6 line, they would be correct. And I've shown that before, and I will here right after. But then my final question would be, why? And that's the question that almost no prime number theorist throughout history would probably be able to answer. But I'll tell you right now, it's because, as I've told you before, and you can look back at that graph, there are more blues than greens. As you count up through the line, you'll be counting more 5 mod 6 primes than 7 mod 6 primes. There will be more blues than greens. But for all their powers, you know, their squares, their cubes to the 4th power, all the squares of both lines, of both greens and blues, are on the green line. That's those pink ones, 25, 49, that's 5 squared, 7 squared. They come from different mod lines, but their squares are both there. And it's not just the squares. It's the squares to the 4th power, to the 6th power, all the evens. So all the even powers of the greens and the blues are on the green line. And the blue line has all the blues, which is all the blues to the 1st power, the primes, but then it contains to the 3rd, to the 5th, to the 7th, all the odds, which means over infinity, the green line contains 75% of all of the primes and the prime powers compared to the blue line contains only 25%. And so the blue line has to churn out just enough of blues to try to balance out the line to fight against that effect all the way to infinity. So it's paradoxical in a lot of ways. At infinity, the green line contains 75% of all the primes and prime powers compared to the 25% of the blue line. But right up until infinity, you would have kicked out almost infinity more of blues than greens, the single primes themselves. So it's very confusing, but I understand it. But not a whole lot of people throughout history would have. After that long monologue, this is a screenshot of that guy that did it in a statistical nature using a computer up to the, 500,000th prime or something like that. And that's how I did it myself on my spreadsheet. As you can see, when you add just the primes on, uh, you know, the 1st power primes, because 5 plus 1 equals 6 divided by 2 equals 3, the average is going to be right around 3, but since there's more blues than greens, the average for that one is slightly over 3. But as you can see on the second graph, when you add the primes plus the prime powers, both the 5 mod 6 and the 7 mod 6, the average is slightly under 3 because there are more 7 mod 6 numbers. And finally, I'm going to do another full Collins video because I constantly come up with different ways to try to explain it that are even more logical or intuitive. But that screenshot was one of my original spreadsheets. But if you look real closely, you can see everything harmonizes. The odd numbers in the form of 4x plus 1, harmonically match the 3x plus 1 numbers, which is exactly equal to the 4 mod 6 line. And yeah, it's beautiful. And the colors, I always use colors to organize stuff. So again, we're doing another full video, and I have some more really good analogies for the non-mathy people. And lastly, that's again my Collets algorithm that encompasses all Collets games. They will all start and finish on there, and shows a whole lot of things about the game in general, including the fact that, as spoken about before, that 99% of all games are only played with 2/3 of the numbers, 2/3 of the evens, and 2/3 of the odds. It's just the 1 mod 6 line, the 5 mod 6 line, the ones with all the primes, and then the 2 mod 6 line and the 4 mod 6 line. The 4 mod 6 line, which again is equivalent to 3x plus 1 when you're only dealing with odd numbers, which is the game. All right, that was a pretty clean one, considering and everything. So I'm going to sign off here. Number one, unusually, as usual, but just because it's this time of year, I'll just throw it a God bless the dead for all the dead, including my lost loved ones and you all's lost loved ones. And then, as always, the rules. Rule number one, do not touch other people without their consent, aka do not hurt each other. And rule number two, it's all about honesty. Lies are a takedown, aka try not to lie. All right, I'll talk to you all later.